the coronavirus, and we survived. Here's our story.
Hey guys, we're the Plush Posse. We're a YouTube family of 4, and we got the coronavirus.
So we wanted to share a story with you guys because there's so much panic and so much uncertainty and so much chaos going on in the world right now with coronavirus that we wanted to show you and share with you our experience and what corona can look like and that you can survive this, and we will survive this. For our family, coronavirus, our infection started around the last week of January. It started with our son, who's a senior in high school, and he came home from school one day and the symptoms started pretty quick. Why don't you tell them how it started for you?
It was just any normal school day. Woke up in the morning, felt fine, but as the day progressed, I had a headache, and the headache just got worse and worse, and by the time I got home from school, I felt like I had a fever. Fast forward next day, I had a raging fever of 103, and I vomited a couple times and just was lethargic. Just couldn't move. The third day, I felt a little bit better, still feverish, but I could at least get out of bed and move and whatnot. Fourth day, I was pretty much fine. I was able to go back to school, but what came with it was about a week's worth of a cough that just would not go away.
Yeah, so pretty much when your fever ended, the cough started and lasted for like a week, week and a half. It was pretty severe cough.
Just almost every minute of the day, I could not resist coughing.
Yeah, it was almost bronchitis-like with the cough.
The weekend that he got sick was his kind of was the height, was when she got sick next. Hers started kind of the same way. She woke up in the morning just normal, and by mid-morning she was really sleepy, really tired, and progressively kept getting warmer and warmer with the fever. And then by the following day she had a very high fever and very lethargic, just wanted to sleep all day. And actually it was that second day in the evening, her fever actually spiked to a crazy level. She was over 104, and we had to act really fast and get her in a cool bath and do everything we could to get her temperature down very quickly and keep taking her temperature every like 10 minutes.
Yeah, she's 4 years old if you don't know, so there's a lot of things you can't give young kids that would help alleviate some of the symptoms. We try to keep her fever down just with
a cool bath and then ice packs around her head and face and cool cloths, and we kept taking her temperature like every 10 minutes until the fever went down below 103. By the third day, it was still pretty warm, but not quite as sleepy. She was getting to be a little bit more active. And again, the same thing as our son. By the fourth day, her fever was gone. As soon as the fever left, the cough started, and a kind of bronchitis-like cough lasted for her, probably because she's young, only lasted like maybe 4 or 5 days. As soon as the fever was gone, the cough started to kick in and was pretty aggressive. You're the next one that got it.
Yeah, I was the next one to get it, and something to remember, if it wasn't already mentioned, is that either one of these two, including myself, we didn't have like your typical flu symptoms where you have, congestion in the sinuses, runny noses. It was pretty much a very weird experience than probably we've ever felt before from any other sickness. It's different for everyone. Each one of us was very similar in nature, in fever, in coughing, and it was just minus the sinus congestion and some of the other things you might get with the flu. This is very different. It was weird for all of us, but shortly after she was recovering from her symptoms, I, within days, came down with a fever. Came on a little slow, and then it hit me. I became very much lethargic, fever. I actually got the cough coming on pretty quick as compared to the other two here. I was still working. I worked from home and still able to function mostly fine, but I was very tired, and it took only 3-4 days maybe that really the majority of the symptoms had disappeared. It kind of came on a little quick like theirs, and it left fairly quick, but I was left with a cough. Has lasted many weeks. This is now into mid-March, so we actually got all of these symptoms before the latest panic in the markets and before it became big news here in the States, because it was still early days and most of it was contained in China still. But there's many cases that have across borders, across the United States, into other countries outside of China. And those people, like us, at the time, we didn't know this was like, the coronavirus. We just felt that this was a flu-like thing, but it had the earmarks of something very different. And unless you felt this, you would kind of write it off as another sickness that maybe you had before, but it had just a weird way of coming on. It quickly left, but you had this coughing. I suppose shortness of breath was maybe slightly part of it, but it was more of the coughing, the fever, the way it came on, and the way it left us. That was our experience of us three, and strangely, normally I'm the one of all of our family here that doesn't get sick. I'm pretty good at avoiding that, even with people coming home with a cold or a virus or bacterial infection.
Those of us who leave the house tend to bring things home.
Yeah. The strange thing about this one was Mom, she didn't get it. She didn't have any symptoms. If you've watched some of the latest NBC News, people that were on cruise ships, specifically two people I will reference. One was a woman. She appeared to be in her 30s, and she was tested positive for the coronavirus, but she didn't have any symptoms. She didn't have fever, she didn't have coughing. You might say that her symptoms were almost non-existent, but she did test positive for the coronavirus. She was in the hospital for a week, given the okay to go home. The other case that is noted is a man that appears in his 60s, was on another cruise ship. It was him and his wife, and he started to come down with the exact same symptoms that we had, but even more specifically, the way it came on was exactly the same way it worked for me. Oddly enough, his wife didn't get it, which was another odd thing because it matched with what our experience was with the coronavirus infection. But we wanted to reiterate to everyone and share our story with you because it's not the end of the world. Older people do need to be very, very careful, and you don't want to take this lightly, but we also wanted to make sure that people don't panic. It can be mild to no symptoms for usually healthy people and people that are young. If you're older, meaning 60s and above, mortality rate is about 1.2 to 1.5%, so nothing to be scared off with when you compare it to SARS, which is 10% mortality rate when that was at its height, and MERS, which had a mortality rate of 34%. That is extremely high. Very fearful times when that was going around, and of course it was mainly contained in China. This one spreads quickly. It doesn't have a mortality rate be as bad as the other two, but you still need to take your health seriously.
Exercise good judgment with common sense and wash your hands, follow the rules that the CDC has published for precautions. Just operate with common sense and good judgment is all we can say, and don't panic.
The best thing is to wash your hands with warm water with soap and dry them thoroughly. If you're going to use Purell gel or something like that,
it doesn't work.
It doesn't work, but if you have 60 to 90% alcohol level in the gel, it can help, but you're best off using warm water, soap, and drying your hands thoroughly. Actually has been a case reported in Hong Kong of a dog that has contracted the coronavirus.
Wow.
Most believe that it came from the owner and not directly from the dog. Just thought we'd bring that up. If for those that have pets, there hasn't been any other cases that
don't
have
give your
spread.
dog coronavirus.
In general, as you can see, we're pretty healthy right now, and it was a mild to a little rough case for the fever part, but in general, we came out of it okay. We want to let all of you know that it's not quite as bad as what it may seem in the media. Yes, you're going to hear of deaths, but those deaths typically are happening with elderly and people that have their immune system has been compromised before this virus has broken out. So those people need to be careful. Yes, take precautions. Stay out of crowds. People that may have a cough and may be sneezing, that's generally how people have gotten it. And another note for those of you that are using masks like they use in hospitals, thinking that it's going to stop or help you from contracting the coronavirus. Actually, the CDC says that you should probably avoid doing that because unless you're in a health center environment like nurses, doctors, healthcare workers, most people don't take the proper precautions of washing their hands, not touching their face. That's where you have the problem. Just don't touch your face, wash frequently. Hopefully what we've discussed here gives everyone a realistic idea of what to expect if in fact you do get the coronavirus. It's not as bad as many fear, and we want to just quell the idea of all this panic. It's creating a lot of havoc. And guys, don't forget that the home remedies that you may be seeing on YouTube or television or in conversations in social media, stay away from those. In fact, they could be very dangerous to a lot of people because some of these things actually can cause allergic reactions in some people, and that could mean death or major medical problems. So avoid the home remedies that you may be thinking about using if you in fact have symptoms of the coronavirus. You just want to stay away from that and be sensible about it.
So guys, we certainly don't mean to diminish this very serious health crisis that's going on across the world, but hopefully this gives you an insight on the survivability and what this really can look like. Of course, if you are at an at-risk category, meaning over 60 or have compromised health issues, this can be very, very serious. Of course, if you're not feeling well, stay home, stay out of crowds, stay off airplanes, stay away from shopping malls. I think it's also important to note that we did not get officially diagnosed with coronavirus because it wasn't really even a thing that was known about when they got sick. But we have since consulted with 2 different healthcare professionals that went through all of their symptoms and went through the timeline with us, and they have determined that they did in fact most likely have coronavirus. It's very possible that this was going on much longer, much earlier than originally thought. So we just want to point that out, but it's very survivable. We'll get through this. We'll get through this together. Don't panic. Exercise good judgment and common sense.
And for those 2 cases that I referenced on the cruise ships, you could find those 2 cases in the links below on our YouTube channel so you can verify for yourself what these people went through, the fact that they did test positive, and the symptoms that they had. They very much, at least the man, shared the same symptoms as I had and us too. So guys, if you have further questions or concerns, we're not medical professionals. We only can share with you our story about what the coronavirus was like. And if you want to hit us up on Instagram, our channel is The Plush Posse. Hit us up there. We'd love to interact with you guys, answer questions. In the meantime, stay healthy, stay safe, and stay plush.